Hey kiddos, so right now we're going to learn about the Native American tribes who lived along the coastal plains region in Texas. There are two tribes we're going to learn about, the Karankawa and the Coahuiltecan tribe. As we watch the video, I want you to pay special attention to what they ate, their economy, the stuff that they made, and their culture.
European explorers reached the Texas coast in the 1500s. The first Native American cultures they met were people who survived by gathering plants and hunting animals.
First tribe.
The Karankawa, or Karankawa, lived along the central coast of Texas from Galveston Bay to Corpus Christi Bay. This tribe lived a nomadic life,
What does nomadic mean?
moving from place to place in search of food. The
Why were they nomadic?
lush marsh lands of the Gulf Coast provided a variety of water plants, game, and sea life, but only in certain seasons of the year. Because of this, the Karankawa had to be on the move constantly to make use of the resources around them. They ate fish and shellfish found in the shallow bays and inlets along the coast, and gathered wild rice that grew in the marshes or dug the roots of water plants from the bays. They also ate alligator meat and rubbed the grease of the alligator fat on their bodies to repel mosquitoes.
This
They
is their
made pottery
economy.
from clay and buried it in fire to harden. They also coated it with a natural asphalt they found along the beaches of the Texas coast. This helped to make the pots waterproof. This may have been the first use of Texas oil. The Karankawa traveled by boat across the inlets and marshes and between islands and the mainland. The boat was called a dugout. Workers would set small fires along the length of a large tree trunk. As the
Economy.
fire burned into the tree, they would scrape the charred wood out and hollow a long trench into the log. This was a slow task and would take many hours. Because of this, a strong dugout must have been a very valuable possession for a Karankawa family.
He's about to tell us why the dugout is such an important thing, and I want you to pay special attention remembering that this tribe is nomadic, meaning that they move from place to place.
Once the dugout was completed, a man could carry his wife and children and all their possessions from place to place. He would stand in a narrow boat and use a long pole to push against the bottom of the bay to propel the boat along. The Karankawa could even carry their houses in the canoe. Their houses were made from small poles tied together at the top. Mats of grass or leaves from palm trees were tied over the poles for protection from the wind, rain, and sun. Because the climate along the coast is mild, the houses did not have to be very sturdy. When a Karankawa family decided to move, they could fold their houses much like folding an umbrella and take it with them.
What were their houses like, and why were they made that way?
About 6 feet, taller than the Spanish explorers that encountered them in 1528. They dressed in loincloths and skirts of animal skin. In cold or wet weather, they wore shawls woven from Spanish moss that grew in the trees along the coast. Karankawa men had strips of cane pierced through their chest and chin. They also painted their faces and bodies with red clay. For battle, they painted their faces half black with charcoal and half red with clay.
What does the way that they painted their faces and pierced themselves tell you about their attitudes and the way that they interacted with other Native Americans that they met, and later the European explorers who met them?
The men hunted deer, bear, and birds with a bow that was as long as the hunter was tall, and their aim was accurate over a long distance. They also shot fish, alligator, and sharks with bows and arrows. The Karankawa lived in small bands of family members. In this way, each small group could find food enough for their family. They adapted well to the rich marshlands of the central Texas coast.
It's important to note that they lived in small communities. And the reason why they lived in small communities was because there wasn't enough food to feed a large group of people of even maybe 5 or 6 families together. Each family would have to go out on their own to ensure that there was enough food for everybody. We're going to move along and learn about the second important tribe, the Coahuiltecan tribe.
Far to the southwest lived another nomadic tribe. The Coahuiltecan made their home in the South Texas plains and across the Rio Grande in northern Mexico. They were the most primitive or least advanced culture in Texas. The region was a desert with scattered grassland, mesquite thickets, and cactus. Because of the dry, barren land, few large animals lived there.
If there's few large animals and very little plants, what can they eat? And because there's so little to eat, it's going to really limit their ability to grow into a large civilization.
The Coahuiltecans moved constantly in search of food. Deer, javelina, and rabbit were found in limited numbers. Often, the Coahuiltecans depended on snake or lizard for food. They also ate mesquite beans and cactus fruit called tuna for a large part of their diet. In times when food was especially scarce, they ate ants and other insects. The Coahuiltecan lived in small family groups so that the limited food they could find would feed their band. When a larger animal, such as a deer or javelina, was spotted, the group would surround the animal and close in from all sides. If only 1 or 2 hunters found a deer, they would begin to chase the animal and keep it running until it fell from exhaustion. Because of this, a Coahuiltecan hunter prided himself on being able to run for days without stopping. The Coahuiltecan fished with bow and arrow. They would plant a burning torch on the shore to draw in the fish and shoot as many as possible.
So they had a very interesting hunting style. We normally think of hunting as, shooting an animal and then getting the meat. But the Coahuiltecan tribe would actually run and chase the animal for days at a time until the animal got tired, and then they were able to catch it. So they really were very smart and very strong. And it's very interesting the way that they lived their lives that way.
And wore long loincloths and sandals made of yucca leaves and skirts of animal skin. They cut small animal skins, such as rabbit, into strips and wove them together to make shawls.
Their houses
were only small huts of branches pulled together and covered with animal skins or grass mats. And each day they moved again in search of food.
They moved every single day looking for food. Truly a nomadic tribe.
The Coahuiltecans were the most primitive